we're going to jump right into the 49ers versus Jaguars. And, we asked, and the 49ers finally delivered after, it seemed like a whole month, like, ever since that Browns game of like, the 49ers sort of got, they they were like riding high after they beat Dallas, and then they went on a 3-game skid and then went into the bye week. And uh it's not uncommon for the 49ers under Kyle Shanahan to show resiliency coming out of the bye and really start to hit their stride for the end of the season. We saw Steve Wilkes make an adjustment going from the booth to the sideline, which I originally thought that he should stay in the booth, and maybe he would have done fine coaching from the booth. But it seemed like, I don't know, there was just a different energy, and he looked a lot more confident from the sideline, whereas in the booth he had, sort of, you would see him giving the death stare like during the game. And now he's able to go talk to more players, which, I mean, if he's able to make little minor adjustments by being able to talk to everybody, every defensive player that needs adjusting, on the sideline, I think it probably is better that way. I just figured that, maybe calling defensive plays, he might be a little bit more used to it from, like the top down perspective where you can see all the personnel on the field, all the packages, and, sort of adjust your defensive plan according to that. But it looks like, the right move. And, his back was sort of against the wall. A lot of people were sort of calling for his job because, we've had a dominant defense for the past, 5 years, or, however many years it's been since like 2019. And, we're not used to having this much talent and not doing, not executing on defense. And so Steve Wilkes rose to the occasion. They stopped the run. Travis Etienne really couldn't get going. And Jacksonville, I mean, they play like Jacksonville. They just, I feel like they abandoned the run early when the 49ers got ahead, and they, it wasn't working to begin with, but they completely like stopped it. And Trevor Lawrence didn't play that well. The 49ers pass rush absolutely overwhelmed him all day. It looked like he was, spinning around in the pocket. It kind of looked like a Beyblade. You know what I mean? Just like spinning around, bouncing off of offensive linemen's backs, and then eventually stopping when he gets tackled, right? But Trevor Lawrence didn't kill the 49ers on the ground either. And really, one thing I've noticed from watching his game due to, like fantasy football or just like all these London games, I noticed that Trevor Lawrence really favors passing towards the sideline. And so, he doesn't throw over the middle. And I was talking to Pia's dad during the game. I was like, man, could you imagine if Trevor Lawrence, like, added the middle of the field to his game, and then he had this pass that was over the middle, and, there was no receiver in the area, and it was just like a layup to Fred Warner. And I was like, oh, I guess that's why he doesn't throw over the middle. So, I was like, that just shows what I know about football. But, I mean, in all seriousness, if he would expand his, the type of routes that he throws, instead of like, out routes to the sideline. And, it almost seems like, all right, the receivers get 15 yards downfield and that's his sweet spot, so he's able to make those throws outside the numbers, but you would like to see a guy like Lawrence, expand. And on the other side of the foot, well, I guess, with the other team, on the 49ers, Brock Purdy was money over the middle. And he even, as much crap as I have given Brock Purdy about not being able to throw outside the numbers, I did count one throw that, where he was in the pocket. It was at least one throw where he was in the pocket and he threw the ball maybe 15 yards down the field outside the numbers. So we're getting a little bit of improvement out of Purdy in that aspect. And, that's really all I can ask for. A big topic of discussion too has been the first touchdown pass to Brandon Ayuk, and I guess Kyle Shanahan was very upset with the play because he felt like it was Brock Purdy's worst decision since he's been on the 49ers. And to be honest, I thought it was a great play. It was probably the wrong decision because he did throw it into a sea of hands, but the throw was it ended with a great result, and I was like, "All right." He extended the play and got it to the guy that he needed to, and you could attest that to a little bit of luck. And sometimes it's just better to be lucky than to be good.
It was it was nice that he extended the play,
Mm.
but that throw was very risky,
Uh huh.
very risky. And I watched the replay and I was like, I guess that's a hell of a window. I the way saw it, I felt like he could have led Ayuk better further back towards
Mm-hmm.
the middle of the end zone, but it's throwing across your body, so it's difficult. But I mean, that was inches. I know it's the game of inches, but that was inches away from being deflected or possibly intercepted. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say in a way, agree with Shanahan, but also, like you said, it was a hell of a play, and it resulted in a touchdown. So what can you really complain about?
Yeah, I can't really complain about the play because I was sitting on the couch and I was like, all right, touchdown to Ayuk right here because I've got him on my fantasy team. And, I did pretty well this week, so it wouldn't really have mattered if I didn't get it, but I feel good that I did. So, um, another throw that was actually like just on the money, great read and like, you know, was fantastic. Oh, actually, you could actually count this as a second throw because I want to say it traveled more than 15 yards down the field, and I think it was outside the numbers. Was the throw to Kittle, where Kittle, I don't know how many yards it was, like 40, anywhere between 40 and 60 yards to the house for a touchdown,
I want
where
to say
he
it was
was able
66.
66.
I want to say.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a great job by Purdy because not only did Purdy deliver a perfect ball, but Purdy took a hit on that play, and I at first I was like, "Oh man, I hope he didn't get hit in the arm," because I sort of have PTSD from last year in the NFC Championship game. I think all of us Niners fans do, and luckily Purdy seemed to be fine after that, and he didn't get hit in the arm. He got more hit into his body, but the fact that he was able to, remain calm and deliver an accurate pass, like you couldn't have thrown it any better. It was perfect, and then Kittle was able to essentially walk in the end zone. So, other than that, McCaffrey did not extend his touchdown streak, but I think it's time for another touchdown streak. If we can get that rolling, and maybe if I play the guy in my league who has McCaffrey, maybe McCaffrey can start the touchdown streak after that. I would really appreciate that. If I do face that fantasy football manager in the playoffs. But we'll see how that goes. And if I don't face him, McCaffrey, go off. Just go off every week. Go for it. But another thing in the game that stood out to me, Mike, I don't know if you noticed the moment where the Jaguars tried to ice Jake Moody, and they ended up icing him twice.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was all about. We didn't really get a good explanation for it, but did they call 2 timeouts? And you can't do that. The Jaguars didn't get penalized for it, and they really didn't explain why there was a second, timeout, or
Yeah,
a
I mean,
stoppage.
I was watching and I was definitely confused. It seemed to me like they got two timeouts off back to back, but I I don't know if the refs were confused or if it was actually one timeout. I don't know. I'm like 99.9% positive that's not allowed. Uh,
Mhm.
but did he get the field goal anyways, or
It barely went in.
yeah?
It barely snuck inside the right crossbar. So, or the right upright, not the crossbar. But man, I was watching it live and I was like, what the hell is this? Because we've seen
Right.
Jake Moody get iced before, starting with the Raiders. So, really, this stems from Josh McDaniels. So, Mike, you and I both have something in common. We hate Josh McDaniels because Jake Moody, like his preseason start couldn't have been any worse. From that first game in the preseason for his NFL career. And he's been resilient. He's bounced back since then, and then had that bad week against Cleveland where he missed 2 field goals. And I mean, you could argue that he costed the Niners the game. I would say that Purdy didn't play that well in that game, but he put Jake Moody in position to win the game. And all around, it was not a there were enough opportunities for the Niners to win that game, and they didn't. But really, I got a little worried, especially when he got iced the second time. I was like, all right, one is enough, but I don't think Jake Moody has practiced being iced twice because that's not even supposed to be a thing. So you get in your head a little bit more as a kicker, and he almost missed. If he did, like, he didn't even miss, right? I can't even remember the last time that he missed a field goal. Maybe it might have even been the week before the Jaguars game, or 2 weeks before the Jaguars game. But man, Niner fans are not fans of Jake Moody. They want Robbie Gould back, and for me personally, I don't. I mean, maybe Jake Moody isn't the answer, but I don't think Robbie Gould is worth giving a call back to. And yeah, he's money like inside the 40, but when it comes to like 50-yarders, the Niners weren't even attempting them last year because he just doesn't have the leg, and he was getting injured pretty frequently, here and there. And then that would prompt Shanahan to attempt field goals with the punter, which isn't very smart. So, really, I give the Niners a lot of credit for bouncing back and beating a pretty good football team and making them look bad. Like, they put up 34 points, all credit to Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, and really the entire offense. Everyone got a touchdown, it felt like, except for McCaffrey. And McCaffrey's the one that needed it for his, to break the NFL all-time record for consecutive games with a touchdown. But really, those records, it's okay. Like, you want to break the records, and at the end, I know they were trying to go for it, but at that point, the defense knew exactly who the ball was going to, so it was going to be damn near impossible to try and get it. And I think you asked this question in the group chat in fantasy: how would we feel if McCaffrey would have gotten hurt trying to go for the record? And
That's what I was going to ask right now.
yeah, and I'll tell you what, I'll be pissed. No, but really, luckily, he's fine from what we know. Knowing Kyle Shanahan, it could be like anything pops up at any moment, and all of a sudden, like, McCaffrey starts feeling something on the plane ride home. So, I think they're already home, so I think we're safe. And really, the Niners bounce back, and we'll see how they do going forward, and if they can keep that momentum going into the next week. Do you have anything that stood out to you, Mike?
Nothing that stood out to me other than what we've already talked about, but specifically, towards the end of that game where that second to last drive, the final drive was, what do you call it? Quarterback kneel, but every play going to McCaffrey, and it was obvious even when it was a pass. It was like, I literally looked over to my uncle when I was watching the game, and he's a Niner fan, and I said the Jaguars should put 6 guys on McCaffrey, and it wouldn't matter. What's his face? The backup quarterback would have still thrown it to him because it was going to him no matter what. So what if he tears his Achilles, tears his ACL, something like that? How would Niner, like, really give a serious answer? How would you feel?
I'd feel pretty stupid.
How do you think Shanahan would feel?
I think he would have
Pretty stupid.
well, he would probably be pissed off, like, visibly in the press conferences, and he would probably sort of say, like, "Oh, it's football." And, like, we'd be like, "Alright, well, you pulled all your other starters." Like, if you're gonna get the record, get it in a meaningful way during the game. You know what I mean? Don't go for it when it's already kinda too late.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think trying the record for him was smart at all. Um, like, it's cool that they did it for him at the same time, but
It's risky. It's a risk that
that's
you
way too
don't need to
risky.
take. It's a
Yeah.
risk you don't need to take.
Especially when you're up 30 or 27 or whatever it was to 3 with 5 to 4 minutes left to go in the game. It was like, I don't know. But I feel like that's not to be the dickhead Raider fan, but that's the Niners, you know, between Kittle lifting the "fuck Dallas" shirt and stuff like that. Like, that's them. So
Mhm.
they can go be them, I guess. But when
No,
it
I
bites them
mean,
in the ass,
I understand. I understand that sentiment that you get, like, from the outside because it's like what you see is this team talk shit over the offseason. Uh, like Debo talking smack about like the Eagles, they would have won if they had a quarterback. And you see this team getting into fights before games, and then you got like players like C.J. Gardner Johnson wanting to fight Debo, like saying it's on site, don't be friendly to me, stuff like that. And it's like the Niners do little small things like running up the score on teams that are like not in the game, where I could see from other teams' perspectives, it's like, wow, these guys are, they're sort of cementing themselves a little bit as the villains. So, I can see that,
right?
you
If
know.
they, it would either be them or the Eagles, I think.
Oh,
But
yeah, the Eagles got
if
the
the
tush
Niners were
push.
consistently, yeah, yeah. But if the Niners were like really consistently like the loud team, they would definitely be considered the villain, you know. But
Mhm,
depends. It kind of just depends on how the season goes and everything. But
mhm. But yeah, so credit to the Niners.